Welcome to another What If playlist scenario, where some tactical alternatives will be explored for a specific scenario to evaluate whether these alternatives determine a different outcome. In this episode we will use scenario S13 from Starter Kit2, which deals with the use of cannons, ordnance. The scenario is called Priority Objective. Background: Corinth, Greece, April 26, 1941. To protect the flank of his future advance on the Soviet Union, Hitler invades the Balkans, where he advances rapidly. Commonwealth forces made up of British, Australian, New Zealand and Greek auxiliaries units comprising Force W combat the German advance by trying to slow down the enemy's advance in all passes and natural fortresses. If the Allied units can withdraw and get past the Corinth Canal, which cuts across the Isthmus of Corinth that separates the Peloponnese from mainland Greece, and destroy the only bridge that crosses this canal, they will be relatively safe. On April 20th, Hitler authorized an operation to capture this bridge, trying to trap part of the retreating Allied units in the northern portion, allowing the passage of his panzers and trapping ANZAC units on the beaches. For this battle, units from the Commonwealth forces and Greek units will combat the enemies constituted by elite units of German paratroopers. The German attack on the Corinth Canal was given the name Operation Hannibal, with the main target of the operation being the Corinth Canal Bridge. The German forces considered that if the bridge could be captured and held, the planned Allied evacuation to either Crete or Egypt would be delayed if not stopped entirely. The bridge itself, however, was held and defended by British and Australian troops and had been wired for demolition to block the canal. The defenders were also equipped with 8 3.7-inch and 8 3-inch anti-aircraft guns along with 16 Bofors guns. The attack plan would consist of German Fallschirmjäger assault engineers seizing both ends of the canal and a surprise glider assault, while both battalions of the 2nd Fallschirmjäger Regiment were to parachute to the north and south of the bridge to neutralize any stationed Allied forces at the channel. The units. Commonwealth units will consist of 2 first-class squads 457, which have a coefficient of 2 for launching smoke grenades. 3 first-class half squadrons 247. A 7-0 leader and an 8-0 leader. 2 light machine guns. In addition, they will have 3 anti-aircraft cannons, with an excellent rate of fire, 3, accompanied by their respective crews. The Greek auxiliary forces will have 2 green squadrons 437. 2 half squadrons, also green 227. A leader 80. The Germans will rely on elite troops. 9 squads 548, whose main characteristics are a smoke grenade coefficient of 2 and assault fire capacity. 5 half squadrons 238. Leaders 80, 8-1 and 9-1. 3 light machine guns. 3 demolition charges. The map and its settings. The map used is the X map, with north pointing to the top of the map. In April, grain fields would normally be out of season, therefore, and would be considered open terrain, with the cost of 1 movement factor to move through these hexes, which would not offer any terrain effect modifiers. However, due to the special rule of the scenario, hexagons with grains will be considered as in season, so it will be necessary to use 1.5 movement factors to move through these hexagons, which will offer +1 hindrance for shots that cross each hex with grains, in addition to negating the modifier for the so-called first shot by movement in open terrain, FFMO. Some scattered woods areas and some wooden and stone buildings across the land. Allied forces will first be deployed to any location on the map with some conditions. 1. The cannons must be 3 or more hexes away from the buildings. 2. Cannons must not be positioned in a hex adjacent to another cannon, being within at least 5 hexes of another cannon. 3. Greek auxiliary forces cannot be placed together with Commonwealth units. These units will have an ELR of 3. German paratrooper forces will enter the scenario in the first round, from any edge of the map. These units, being elite, will have an ELR of 5. And, at this point there is a legitimate doubt, can the Germans divide their forces and enter the scene from several edges at the same time? Jim interpreted, at first, that these units can enter from one of the edges only. However, when reading the situation background, the Germans tried to surround the Commonwealth forces from several directions including paratroopers. In this first playthrough, Jim will use the idea that German forces start exclusively from one of the edges. Winning conditions. The Germans win immediately if they eliminate or capture all German anti-aircraft guns or are the only occupants of the hexes with uncaptured guns. Special scenario rules. 1. Allied leaders will have a +1 dice roll modifier if they attempt to direct fire or restore morale to units of a different nationality. 2. Cannons cannot be positioned in a hidden manner, HIP. 3. Crews in first-class Commonwealth units do not experience cowering. 4. Grains are in season. The scenario will have 6 turns. Disposition of Commonwealth forces and Greek auxiliaries. For the disposition of the Allied units, some challenges arise immediately, since the German units, which will enter the scenario in the first round, will be able to do so from any edge of the scenario. Furthermore, the numerical superiority and quality of German units is overwhelming. The Allies' great resource are precisely the game's objectives, that is, the anti-aircraft cannons with their fantastic rate of fire, 3, which has some restrictions regarding their positioning on the map. With these considerations in mind, the cannons will be positioned in a central area of the map, from where they will be able to hit German units approaching through open terrain with all their firepower. These cannons will be arranged in such a way as to be able to attack German units with crossfire from fixed positions in the most effective way possible. One idea is that these units do not need to move from their initial position, at most having to modify the coverage arc, CA, to fire. These cannons can rotate within their own axis, which works exactly like tanks with a fast-moving turret, adding just +1 DRM to rotate each face of the hex. Infantry units will be placed around these strategic positions to try to engage advancing German units, slowing them down as much as possible. The German forces chose to enter the scene from the north and were divided into 2 large groups that will head towards the cannons under the protection of forested areas. Let the battle begin. Rally phase. No actions. Prep fire phase. No actions. Movement phase. Let's start with the group on right flank, which has approximately half of the German units, which will move with the flank protected by the woods and advance towards Hex F4. Left flank and the units arrange their advance in a protected manner through the woods where they will cease their movement without engaging the Commonwealth forces, waiting for the opportune moment, the advance phase, to position themselves in front of the enemy's units, avoiding the defensive fire attack phase. Defensive fire phase. The British with the anti-aircraft gun, from now on called Gun A, make a change in the arc of coverage, rotating a turn its own axis by 2 hexes to the angle N2 and 3, towards the units it considers to be the most likely threats. Anticipating the advance of German forces, he fires a shot at hex T2, in the target type area, with the aim of launching the acquisition marker in this hex. As a basic number to hit the target, we will have 7 with modifiers of +2 for the rotation of 2 sides of the hex carried out when changing the coverage arc, +2 for the hexes with orchards in P2 and Q3, requiring 3 or less to hit the target. A miss, and the -1 acquisition marker remains on the attacked hex and the gun loses its rate of fire. The anti-aircraft gun in S5, Gun B, will fire within its coverage area on hex U3 with the base number to hit of 7, area target type, with the modifier +1 for the orchard in T4, requiring 6 or less to hit the target. The target is hit, and the gun maintains the rate of fire, with the -1 acquisition marker deposited on the attacked hex. New shot, now using the -1 acquisition modifier, requiring 7 or less to hit the target. 7. The target is hit, and the gun maintains the rate of fire. As the objective of this attack was to place the -2 acquisition marker on the attacked hex, Gun B ceases activity to avoid the possibility of breaking with the result of a double 6 on the dice. The C gun in L4 fires on hex G4, with no modifiers, requiring 7 or less to hit the target. The target is not hit, the gun maintains the rate of fire, and the -1 acquisition marker is deposited on the attacked hex. New shot requiring 8 or less to hit the target. 10. The target is not hit, and the gun loses its rate of fire and the acquisition marker is turned to face -2. Advancing fire phase. No actions. Rout phase. No actions. Advance phase. On the right flank, German units advance 1 hex, still not establishing contact with enemy forces. On the left flank, German units advance towards enemy forces, avoiding the hexes marked with acquisition markers at T4 and U5. Rally phase. Commonwealth phase. Turn 1. No actions. Prep fire phase. Fire group Q4 and R4 fire on enemy forces in S2, with 8 firepower +1 for the orchard, +1 for the woods. Seven plus 2 is 9, pin test check. The leader becomes pinned and cannot assist other units in this attack. The first squad is also pinned. The second squad is also pinned. Half squad passes. Gun B will fire on S2, with the basic number to hit the target of 8, infantry target type, +1 for the orchard hex, +1 for the woods, requiring 6 or less to hit the target. This gun could make use of the so-called infantry fire equivalent, IFE, of this gun, the number in parentheses next to the caliber of the gun. IFE allows the attack to be carried out as if it were a machine gun, that is, not needing to perform the to-hit mechanism to hit the target, evaluating the attack in the 8 firepower column in the infantry fire table. On the negative side, this type of attack implies a reduction of 1 in the rate of fire, which drops from 3 to 2, and there is no possibility of gaining acquisition. Jim, weighing the alternatives, chooses to maintain the rate of fire and the acquisition gain and will carry out the method using the to-hit table. The basic number to hit the target 3 hexes away is 8, +1 for the orchard in S4 +1 for the woods, requiring 6 or less to hit the target. Double 3, 6, guns do not suffer from cowering. The target is hit, and the gun maintains the rate of fire, with the -1 acquisition marker deposited on the hex. The shot will be analyzed in column 4 in the infantry fire table. 11 in column 4 is a miss. New shot with the same parameters, now with a -1 modifier for the acquisition marker, requiring 7 or less to hit the target. 6 + 1 is 7, the target is hit and the gun maintains the rate of fire, and the target is hit. The acquisition marker is facing the -2 side. 7, pin test check. The half squad, which was not yet pinned, is tested and becomes pinned. New shot, same parameters now with the -2 acquisition modifier, requiring 8 or less to hit the target. 9, the target is not hit, and the machine gun maintains the rate of fire. New shot requiring 8 or less to hit the target. 4, the target is hit, and the gun maintains the rate of fire. 10, a miss. New shot, same parameters. 3, the target is hit, and the gun maintains the rate of fire for the 5th consecutive time. 10, new miss. New attack, same parameters. 11, the target is not hit, and the gun finally loses the rate of fire. Gun A will fire on the Germans in S2, 6 hexes away, with markers +1 for the orchard, +1 for the jungle, requiring 6 or less to hit the target. 9, a miss, the gun loses rate of fire, and the -1 acquisition marker is placed. The ANZAC squad in V4 fires on the German stack in V2, with 6 firepower +1 through the woods. Three, +1 is 4, 2 morale check with the machine gun maintaining the rate of fire. The leader passes. The first squad is pinned. The second squad does not pass and has its morale broken. Shooting with the light machine gun with 2 firepower +1. Nine +1 is 10, a miss. Movement phase. The British will try to move the sea gun towards the west. The base number for this movement is 8, with modifiers of +3 to move through a hex with grains, requiring 5 or less for this movement to occur. Unfortunately, the crew barely fails and is unable to move. Squad from L3 to L4 where it can assist in moving the British gun in the next movement phase. Leader from L6 to L4. I5 to L3. I6 to I5. J5 to I5. Greek leader from L7 to L6. Leader 7-0 becomes exhausted and moves from P7 to V9. Defensive fire phase. V2 firing on V4, with 2 firepower, squad pinned, +1 through the woods. Three plus 1 is 4, 1 morale check. Five, the ANZAC squad passes. Stacking fire in S2 over Q4, with 8 firepower +1 per orchard in R3. Six plus 1 is 7, 1 morale check, with the machine guns maintaining the rate of fire. The Greek squad gets pinned. Shooting with light machine guns, with 4 firepower, pinned units, +1. For +1 is 5, 1 morale check and machine guns lose their rate of fire. 9 plus 1 is 10, the Greek squad has its morale broken. Advancing fire phase. No actions. Route phase. Q4 to M6. V2 to U1 along with leader 80. Advance phase. Half squad at L3 to L4. Half squad from L3 to M3. Close combat phase. Pin markers are removed from the board, with no further activities. Oops, Jim forgot about the 7-0 leader that moves from V9 to W9. And we move on to the rally phase of the German phase of the second turn. Rally phase German phase turn 2. The The Germans will try to recover the morale of the units in U1, with modifiers of -1 for the woods, +4 for the DM marker. (11) And morale is not recovered, and the DM marker is removed. Prep fire phase. No actions. Movement phase. A squad from F5 to H5, where it suffers an attack from 6 firepower from the half squads in Hex I5, doubled to 12 because it is point blank, +1 from the woods, -1 from the non-assault movement. (10) Pin test check. A 6 residual fire marker is deposited on the attacked hex. The German squad passes. Subsequent first fire with 6 firepower without modifiers. (9) A miss. Stacking with leader 9-1 from G6 to I6. At this moment, the half squads carry out a final protective fire, where the result of the dies, in addition to attacking the Germans, will also serve to carry out a normal morale check on the Allied units. The shot will be with 6 firepower reduced to 3 for being a subsequent first fire, doubled again to 6 for being shot at point blank range, without modifiers. 6 + 1 is 7, Allied units become pinned and it's 1 morale check. The German leader passes, and one of the German squads gets pinned. As the German stack spent 2 movement factors to enter the current hex, the Allies will make 1 more attack with 2 firepower. The units are pinned, without modifiers. 10, it is a miss, and the Allied units have their morale broken. Squad from F4 to G6, where it suffers an attack by anti-aircraft cannon C with the infantry fire equivalent, IFE, variety of shooting, where the attack is carried out directly on the infantry fire table with 8 firepower, reducing the rate of fire by 1 and losing the ability to gain the acquisition marker. The modifiers will be +1 for woods, -1 for non-assault movement. (7) is 1 morale check and the cannon maintains the rate of fire. (8 + 1 is 9 and the German squad has its morale broken. Half squad F3 to G3 in assault movement, when it receives a shot from cannon C using IFE. The modifier will be +1 for the woods. 6 + 1 7, 1 morale check and the cannon maintains the rate of fire. The half squad has its morale broken. F3 to G5. The German stack next to the leader 8-1 moves from S2 to T1 and then to T2, in assault movement, to escape the line of sight of the British guns, which with this maneuver, lose their acquisition markers. Fire with the B cannon on the units in T2, with modifiers of +1 for the orchard, +1 for the woods. Jim's question is whether he should attack with the equivalent direct infantry, reducing the chances of maintaining the rate of fire and the ability to acquire the target, or attack using the traditional method of using the to-hit table. In this case, Jim will use the more traditional to-hit method, requiring a basic result of 8 to reach the target, +1 for the orchard, +1 for the woods. 9 plus 2 is 11, the target is not hit and the cannon maintains the rate of fire and the -1 acquisition marker is deposited in T2. New shot with the same number to hit the target, 8, plus 1 for the orchard, plus 1 for the woods, -1 for the -1 acquisition marker. Seven plus 1 is 8, the target is hit, the cannon maintains the rate of fire and the acquisition marker is turned to the face -2. New release of die to evaluate the attack on the Germans. 11, and it's a miss. New fire without modifiers. 6, the target is hit, and the cannon maintains the rate of fire. 7 in the 4 firepower column is pin test check. The leader becomes pinned. The first squad passes. The second squad becomes pinned. Half squad passes. New shot without modifiers. 9, Jim considers the target is hit and the cannon loses its rate of fire. 6, 1 morale check. 7, the German leader passes. The first squad's morale was broken with the result of 9. The second squad breaks. Half squad passes. U2 to U4 in assault movement. The Greek squad in U4 fires at the German half squad, with 4 firepower plus 2 through the hexes with palm groves in S4 and T4. 8 is a miss. New firing with 2 firepower plus 2. New miss. Squad V4 fires only with intrinsic firepower over the German half squad with 4 firepower, double to 8 for being fired at close range, -1 for being fired over hex in an open field. Five -1 is 4, 2 morale check and the machine gun maintains the rate of fire. 5 plus 2 is 7 and the half squad passes. New fire with 2 firepower from the medium machine gun, doubled to 4 as it is fired at close range. Six -1 is 5, 1 morale check. 7 plus 1 is 8, and the half squad should be pinned. Half squad from U2 to V3 in assault movement, and the Australian half squad chooses to carry out a final protective fire with 4 firepower -1. (11), and in addition to not affecting the German half squad, it also causes the Australian unit's morale to drop and the machine gun to malfunction due to having used sustained fire, which reduces the number of malfunctioning from 12 to 10. V2 to W4. Defensive fire phase. I fire with cannon A on the German stack in T2, with the basic number to hit, plus 1 for the grain hex, 2 more for the orchard hexes and 1 more for the woods. Six plus 4 is 10, the target is not hit, and the cannon maintains the rate of fire and the -1 acquisition marker is deposited in the hex. New shot with the same parameters, adding the -1 modifier for the acquisition marker. 10, a miss and the cannon loses its rate of fire. Advancing fire phase. Fire group with German units in W4, V3, and U4 fire on the squad with broken morale in V4 with 5 firepower due to advancing fire, doubled to 10 due to being fired at point blank fire, therefore 8 firepower plus 1. For plus 1 is 5, 2 morale check. Seven plus 2 9. The Australian squad breaks again and suffers casualty reduction, becoming half squad. Fire group at I6 and H5 fires with 16 firepower. German units have the assault fire, and each of these units has a firepower of 4 in the advancing fire phase. This firepower is doubled to 32 as it is a point-blank fire, and the modifier will be plus 1 for the woods. Ten plus 1 is 11, 1 morale check. All half squads break again and are eliminated from the board. Route phase. V4 to X6. T2 to U1. G4 to F5. G3 to F5. M6 to L6. Advance phase. T2 to T3, acquisition markers accompany with this unit. W4 to V4. U4 to T4. V3 to U4. The units in I6 divide into hexes J5 and I4. G5 to H5. Close combat phase. No actions. Rally phase of the Commonwealth, phase of the second round. Australian half-squad rally attempt in X6, with modifiers of +1 for the auto rally, -1 for the woods, -4 for the DM marker. The rally does not occur, and the DM marker is removed. Attempted rally by the Greek unit in L6. For -1 for the woods +4 for the DM marker is 7, and the Greek unit recovers morale. The DM marker is removed in F5. Rally of German units in U1. Only one of the German units regains morale. Prep fire phase. are 4 firing on T4 with 4 firepower plus 1. A miss. Cannon B will take advantage of the -2 acquisition marker on T3. The basic number to reach is 8, plus 1 for the orchard, -2 for the acquisition marker. The target is hit, and the cannon maintains the rate of fire. 7. Pin test check. Half squad passes. New shot, same parameters to achieve. Nine minus 1 is 8, the target is hit, and the cannon loses its rate of fire. 1 morale check. Eight plus 1 is 8, the German squad breaks. Shooting with the C cannon on J5 using IFE, it is not necessary to use the to-hit table. 8 firepower plus 1 through the woods. For plus 1 is 5, 2 morale check in the 8 firepower column, and the cannon maintains the rate of fire. One of the squads has its morale broken. And the other maintains morale. New fire on the units in Hex I5, using IFE. Again 2 morale check with the cannon maintaining the rate of fire. The first squad becomes pinned. The second squad has its morale broken. Taking advantage of the maintenance of the rate of fire, new fire on J5. Seven, 1 morale check and the cannon loses rate of fire. The first squad has its morale broken. The second squad breaks again and becomes half squad. Cannon M moves its cover arc to the spine of the hex between L3 and M4, moving along 2 sides of the hex. This unit will fire on I5 using the IFE to hit the hex, plus 2 for the cannon rotation, plus 1 for the hex with grains in L3, plus 1 for the woods, meaning a roll of 4 or less will be needed to hit the target. 6 plus 4 is 10, the target is not hit and the cannon loses its rate of fire. Movement phase. W9 to X6. Half squad at L6 becomes exhausted, CX, and advances towards H3, where it suffers a 2 firepower hit from H3, -2, FFMO, FFNAM. Eight minus 2 is 6, pin test check. Half squad passes. New shot with 1 firepower -2. 10, it's a miss and the half squad advances to G4. The stack with leader 80 and the Greek squad in L6 advances to J6. Defensive fire phase. I3 shooting over G4 with 2 firepower plus 1 through the woods. Seven plus 1 is 8, a miss. Fire group B4, U4, and T4 fire on the anti-aircraft gun with 12 firepower, plus 1 for the orchard, plus 2 for the cannon emplacement. Seven plus 3 is 10, which would be a pin test check that Jim doesn't perform. Advancing fire phase. Squad with the light machine gun in L4 fires with 2 firepower plus 1 on the Germans in I5. Five plus 1 is 6, and it would be a pin test check, which Jim also doesn't do. Route phase. The German units in J3 cannot comply with the rules for the route and are eliminated from the game. The squad with broken morale in I3 could move to H6 but choose to remain in the hex they are in. Advance phase. G4 to F4. German units in F5 gain the DM marker again. J6 to I6 entering close combat. Close combat phase. We will evaluate the possibility of an ambush for units involved in close combat. The Germans will have the -1 modifier for the leader and the Greeks will have no modifiers. There is no ambush. The Greeks will attack with 5 firepower against one of the Germans, with a ratio of 4 to 1, needing 9 or less to affect the Germans. These will attack the Greek leader, with a 1 to 1 ratio, with the -1 modifier for the leader, requiring at least 6 to affect the Greek leader. The attack begins with the Greeks, who with 5 eliminate the German leader. A result of 7 does not affect the Greek leader. With this we end this second round in which the Allied forces caused great damage to the German units on the right flank, which see no real possibility of significant advances in this sector. On the left flank the situation is a little different, and the German forces are getting dangerously close to Cannon B and must conquer this objective in the next turn. Well done friends, with this we finish the second round of the S13 scenario of Starter Kit 2 and we hope to meet you again for the third and exciting round. Rally phase German turn 3. Auto-rally attempt by the German squad in I5. The current player is entitled to 1 auto-rally during the rally phase of his turn, and this rally attempt must be the first action of the rally phase, with plus modifiers 1 for the auto-rally, -1 for the woods, plus 4 for the DM marker. 6 plus 4 is 10 and the German squad cannot recover its morale. The DM marker remains on the squad counter due to the presence of the Greek unit in good order at I6. Rally attempt by the German squad in T2 with modifiers -1 for the woods, -1 for the leader plus 4 for the DM marker. 11 plus 2 is 13 and the half squad does not recover morale, with the removal of the DM marker. Attempted rally by 2 German squads in U1 with a modifier of -1 through the woods. The squad with the machine gun doesn't pass. The second squad passes. At this point, Jim is in doubt whether the German squad that has recovered its morale could recover the light machine gun from the squad with its morale broken. After reading the manual, Jim concluded that the German leader could recover this weapon, ASLRB Rule 4.44. Prep fire phase. Squad 548 and I-5 fires on the Greek stack in I-6 with 5 firepower doubled as it is fired at point blank, with 8 firepower plus 1 for the woods. Nine plus 1 is 10, it's a miss. Movement phase. Squad from V4 to T5. The anti-aircraft gun moves its covering arc to the T4-T5 axis and fires at the German unit. To hit the German squad, the basic number to hit is 8, -1 for being a non-assault movement, -2 for being a point-blank shot. For -3 is 1, the target is hit with the consequent placement of the -1 acquisition marker and the cannon maintains the rate of fire. 6 in the 8 firepower column is 1 morale check. 5 plus 1 is 6 and the squad passes. At this point Jim makes a mistake against the Germans and makes another attempt to reach the German squad, which is not cool, as the German squad only spent 1.5 movement factor to enter the T5 hex and, therefore, could only receive only 1 shot in this movement phase. Basic number to reach 8, -1 for non-assault movement, -1 for at least 1 acquisition, -2 for point-blank shooting. 3. The target is hit again, the acquisition marker is turned to face -2, with the cannon maintaining the rate of fire. Another error, the result of the dice is 8, which is a normal moral check, which the squad passes again. Squads in U1 moving to U3. Half squad in T4 will try to deposit the demolition charge on the anti-aircraft gun, spending 3 movement factors to carry out this attack. The anti-aircraft cannon makes use of the rate of fire and launches a shot with the basic number to hit the target of 8, -2 for being point blank, -1 for being non-assault movement. Six. The target is hit, the cannon maintains the rate of fire and the -1 acquisition marker is deposited on the target. 11. It's a miss. New trigger same parameters only with modification of the -2 acquisition. 8 - 4 is 4, the target is hit, and the cannon maintains the rate of fire. Again 11 and it's a miss. New attempt with the same parameters, the half squad spend a total of 3 movement factors to deposit the demolition charge on the British cannon, hex with grain. 8. The target is hit, and the cannon maintains the rate of fire. 11. New miss. The Greek squad fires 4 firepower on the German half squad, +1 for the hex with orchard, -1 for the non-assault movement. 3 in the 4 firepower column is 2 morale check. 10 + 2 is 12, the German unit has its morale broken and the failure to place the demolition charge on the hex with the anti-aircraft gun, with a spectacular tactical victory for the Allies. Half squad from U4 to T4, spending 1 movement factor, where it is attacked by 4 residual fire. 9, and the half squad is unaffected. In this hex, the German unit will spend 1 movement factor to try to recover the demolition charge. In fact, Jim believes that this action could not be carried out as the demolition charge is still in the possession of the half squad with broken morale. Anyway, the demolition charge is recovered. With this expenditure of movement factor, the cannon, which maintained the rate of fire, makes another attempt to reach the German unit, with -2 due to the shot being at point blank, -1 due to it being non-assault movement. 7. The target is hit and the cannon finally loses the rate of fire. 9. Is pin test check. And, with the result of 11 and to the complete happiness of the British, the half squad is pinned and will not be able to carry out the attack with the demolition charge. German half squad in H5 spends 3 movement factors to deposit the demolition charge in I6. With this movement you receive an attack from the Greek squad, with 8 firepower plus 1 for the woods, -1 for the non-assault movement. 6. Is 1 morale check. The German half squad should have had its morale broken, but Jim considers it pinned. You'll know why. In any case, this prevents the demolition charge from being effectively deployed. Defensive fire phase. Jim completely forgets about the loss of the cannon's rate of fire and goes to attack the T5 hex. Jim could use intensive fire, which would allow a shot after losing the rate of fire, with penalties of +2 to hit the target, reducing the number of breaks to 10, with 12 it is eliminated, and has no rate of fire or acquisition. To reach the target, the basic number is 8, -2 because it is fired at point blank. 5. The target is hit. 6. 1 morale check. 7 plus 1 is 8 and, as the German unit is already pinned, nothing happens. Continuing with the corollary of errors, another shot at the target. 5. The target is hit, and here, the worst happens. Instead of measuring the impact on the target, Jim uses the result of the dice as the effect on the German squad, which causes it to break and reduce to half squad. Impressively, this is why solo play is complicated. There is never arbitration or external control over game activities. Continuing the same beat, using a fake rate of fire fake, I fire at T4, with the basic number to hit the target of 8, with -2 because it is fired at point blank from 1 hex away. Four, the hex is reached. 7. Normal morale check. 6. Is a miss. To avoid the possibility of breaking the British cannon, they decided to stop firing. Fire from the Australian squad in L4 on the German stack in I5, with 6 firepower plus 2. Five plus 1 is 6, a morale check. The squad's morale is broken. The other squad passes. Fire from the cannon in L4 on the German stack in I5, using the IFE, with the +1 modifier through the woods. Six plus 1 is 7, 1 morale check. The first squad passes. The second squad breaks again and is reduced to half squad. Shooting from I6 over H5 with 4 firepower plus 1. 10. A miss. Cannon firing in M3 over the German stack in I5, using IFE, with modifiers +1 for the hex with grain, +1 for the woods. 8 + 2 is 10, a miss and the cannon loses its rate of fire. Advancing fire phase. Squads in U5 fire on the Greek squad in R4, with 8 firepower +1 for the hex with orchard. Five + 3 is 8, normal morale check. 11. The Greek squad breaks above the ELR. As it is a green unit, and cannot have its quality reduced, it undergoes a casualty reduction. Half squad firing at T4 on the British cannon, with 1 firepower +2 for emplacement. 11. It's a miss. Rout phase. Rout of the unit in T4, another mistake, as Jim performs a low crawl for the German unit, when the presence of the hex with orchard would allow the Germans to head towards the leader in T2. T5 to W4. R4 to N6. German stacking in low crawl for I4. Advance phase. No actions. Close combat phase. No actions. Rally phase Commonwealth turn 3. Greek unit auto-rally attempt in N6. The attempt fails and the half squad prefers to remain under the DM marker. Rally in T2 with -1 modifier through the woods. Three and the half squad regains its morale. Rally in U1 with modifiers -1 for the leader, -1 for the woods. The unit recovers morale. Prep fire phase. Anti-aircraft gun on the half squad in S4, with a modifier of -2 for point-blank firing. 6. The target is hit, and the cannon loses its rate of fire. 7. 1 morale check. The half squad gets pinned. Movement phase. The Allies will try to move the anti-aircraft cannon at L4, manhandling. To carry out this maneuver, some aspects will be considered. The first is the number for manhandling, which is located on the marker next to the letter M. In the case of the anti-aircraft gun, this number is 8. As modifiers we will have the terrain through which the cannon will travel, doubling the cost in movement factors. In open terrain, this number will be 1 for open terrain and 1 for movement, with a +2 modifier. The movement of cannons can be assisted by additional units, with modifiers of -2 for squads and -1 for crews and half squads. Leaders can help by increasing the number of movement factors from 4 to 6, and exhaustion can also be added to further increase this movement. The downside of this maneuver is that the units involved carry out what is called hazardous movement, receiving a modifier of -2 in the case of attacks made by enemies, and will not be able to fire during the phase in which they move. Furthermore, the cannon loses the emplacement protection. In the case of our cannon that will move to K5, we will have a modifier of +2 for movement in open terrain, -2 for the squad that assists in the movement. 6. The cannon can be moved with the expense of 2 movement factor. Every time the movement occurs, it is possible to modify the cannon's coverage arc, and in this case, it moves to the L4-L5 axis. New attempt, now for the woods hex in J5. To carry out this movement, it will be necessary to spend 4 movement factors. The modifiers will be +4 for transit to the hex with the woods, -2 for squad assistance. Six plus 2 is 8. The cannon can be moved to the desired hex. Now the cannon in M3 will try to move to hex L3, with modifiers of +3 for the displacement per hex of grain, -1 for the assistance of the half squad. Six plus 2 is 8, and because the result is equal to the manhandling number, the cannon can move and ends its movement. The cannon axis is shifted to the M3-M4 vertex. The Greek stack in I6 moves to hex J3 and the leader proceeds to hex I3. The Greek leader suffers an attack by the German half squad with 2 firepower -2, FFMO, FFNAM. 6 minus 2 is 4, 1 morale check. And the Greek leader breaks. Half squad in F4 to G4 in assault movement, where you receive 1 firepower for the German half squad, +1 for the woods. 5 plus 1 is 6, a miss. Leader 7-0 moves to the half squad in X6. Defensive fire phase. German stack on U3 fires with 8 firepower on the anti-aircraft gun, +1 for the hex with orchard, +3 for the emplacement. Eight plus 3 is 11, a miss. Shot carried out by the half squad at T4 on the anti-aircraft cannon, with 1 firepower, pinned, doubled to 2 firepower as it was shot at point blank, +2 for emplacement. 8 plus 2 is 10, a miss. Advancing fire phase. Greek squad fires 4 firepower on the adjacent German stack, with no modifiers. Nine is a miss. Half squad fires with 1 firepower without modifiers on the same stack. New miss. Route phase. T3 to T2. Greek leader from I3 to H1. German units in I-4 are eliminated due to failure to perform the route. Roughly speaking, they cannot move towards enemy units or to hex adjacent to enemy units in good order. Greek half squad at N6 moves to the hex with the cannon at J5. Jim made a mistake, as the correct order in the route phase would be for the Australians followed by the Germans. Advance phase. Greek squad from J3 to K3. Squad from J5 to I6. Half squad from G4 to G5. Close combat phase. No actions. Rally phase German turn 4. Alright friends, with the start of the 4th round, let's close this episode, where the Commonwealth forces obtain a strategic victory, as they practically annihilated the German forces on the right flank, and still maintain all the anti-aircraft guns. The Germans will have to quicken their pace and be more aggressive if they want to be successful in the remaining 3 rounds. Rally phase German turn 4. Auto rally attempt for German unit in C5. Modifiers +1 for auto rally, -1 for woods. 6 and the squad recovers its morale. German unit in T2 with -1 for the woods +4 for the DM marker. For +3 is 7, and the German half squad regains its morale. Greek unit rally attempt at J5 with modifiers +4 for the DM marker, -1 for the woods. 9, the half squad does not recover morale. Prep fire phase. Before starting the prep fire phase, we will attempt a rally by the Australian unit in X6. 2 and the Australian unit regains morale. In the subsequent attempt to recover the function of the machine gun, 6 and the machine gun is definitively eliminated from the scene. Prep fire phase that passes without actions. Movement phase. Attempt to position the demolition charge in the cannon at S5 with the expense of 3 movement factors. The anti-aircraft gun fires at the German unit, using the to-hit method, with the base number of 8 to hit with the -1 modifier for the non-assault movement, -1 for the -1 acquisition marker. The target is hit, and the cannon maintains the rate of fire. Jim's new error that considers the roll of the dice to determine whether the target was hit, and it was, and uses this result as the roll of the dice to assess the damage to the enemy unit. With the result of 3 + 1 is 4, which is a result of K/2 in the 8 firepower column. With this, the demolition charge is not placed, and the half squad is eliminated. Continuing the movement phase, attempt to place the demolition charge at I6 with the expense of 4 movement factors. Australian unit fires 457, with 8 firepower, -1 for non-assault movement, +1 for the woods. 9, would be a pin test check that Jim disregards because he didn't use the non-assault movement modifier when calculating the modifiers. We got off to a bad start. Subsequent first fire with 4 firepower with 1 more through the woods, again disregarding the -1 modifier for non-assault movement. 9 and it's a miss. Firepower of 4 firepower by the half squad in G5 on the German half squad. The modifiers will be +1 for the woods, again disregarding the -1 modifier for non-assault movement. 6 + 1 is 7, which is a pin test check. "12 and the half squad gets pinned and the demolition charge returns to the home hex. Half squad in T2 to S4 in assault movement. The cannon rotates the covering arc towards the German unit. Shooting with the cannon, requiring a basic number of 8 to hit the target, +1 for the rotation of the cannon. 6 + 1 is 7, the target is hit, and the cannon maintains the rate of fire. 8, normal morale check. Six, a miss. Stacking from T2 to R3, where it suffers an attack from the cannon in L3, 6 hexes away, requiring the base number of 8 to hit, +4 for the grain hexes, -1 for the non-assault movement. Six + 3 is 9, the target is not hit, the cannon maintains the rate of fire. Retry with a final modifier of +2, +4 for hexes, -1 for non-assault movement, -1 for at least 1 acquisition. 6 + 2 is 8, the target is hit, and the cannon maintains the rate of fire and the acquisition marker is turned to the face -2. "12 and the target is unaffected. This shot should not have occurred as the German stack only spent 1 movement factor to penetrate this hex. The German squad advances to R4 in assault movement. The -2 acquisition marker follows the stacking. New anti-aircraft gunfire, with modifiers of +5 for hexes with -2 grains and at least 2 acquisition. 9, the target is not hit, and the cannon loses its rate of fire. The anti-aircraft gun turns the covering arc and fires a shot at the German pile-up. The modifiers are +1 for turning the covering arc, -2 for being a point-blank shot. 6, the target is hit, and the cannon maintains the rate of fire. 12 and this shot has no effect. New shot with the same parameters, now with the -1 acquisition modifier. 11 - 2 is 9, the target is not hit with the cannon losing the rate of fire. Stacking from U1 to V4. Stack with U3 becomes exhausted and advances on hex O2. In this hex it is attacked by the fire group formed by the Greek unit in K3 and the half squad in L3, with a total of 4 firepower, 2 from the Australian half squad, 2 from the Greek squad since the target is more than 3 hexes away from the Greeks, reducing their firepower by half. The modifier will be +1 for hex with grains, -1 for non-assault movement. "10 and it's a miss. Jim performs an illegal subsequent first fire, as the German stack only spent 1 movement factor to enter the hex, and therefore could only be attacked once by the fire group. Shooting with 2 firepower +1 for hex with grains, -1 for non-assault movement. 8 and it's a miss. C6 to F6. Defensive fire phase. Cannon in G5 turns its cover arc to the J4K5 axis and fires on the German pileup in O2. The modifiers will be +1 for the cannon rotation, +3 for hexes with grains. (10) The target is not hit, and the cannon loses its rate of fire. Advancing fire phase. Fire group with units in R4 and S4 fire on the British cannon with 4 firepower +2 for emplacement. Six plus 1 is 7, pin test check. The cannon crew passes by. Firing from V4 on the cannon, with 4 firepower, the German unit has the assault fire property, with the modifier of +2 for emplacement -1 for the German leader. 9 and it's a miss. Fire from O2 against Allied units in L3, with 8 firepower and modifiers +1 for the CX marker, +1 for the hex with grains. 10 and it's a miss. German half-squad fire on the Australian half-squad with 1 firepower +1. Eight is a miss. Route phase. No actions. Advance phase. The German units in R4 and S4 move and enter close combat with the British crew. The German leader from V4 to W4. Squad from V4 to U5. Close combat phase. As the close combat will take place in grain hexes, the ambush does not occur. This only occurs in buildings and woods hexes and, in the case of the Pacific Theater of Operations, hexes with kunai and bamboo. The Germans attack with 5 firepower against 2 of the British, with a 2-to-1 ratio requiring at least 7 to affect the Allied unit. The British will attack one of the German half-squads with a 1-to-1 ratio requiring at least 5 to affect the German unit. 6. The British unit is eliminated. With a result of 9, the German unit is not affected. With this, the Germans conquer one of the objectives of the scenario, leaving 2 more cannons to win the game. Rally phase Commonwealth turn 4. Auto-rally attempt by the Greek leader with the modifiers of +1 for the auto-rally -1 for the woods. 7. The Greek leader regains morale. Greek half-squad rally attempt in J5 with the -1 modifier through the woods. 7 minus 1 is 6 and the Greek unit does not recover morale. German unit rally in W4 with modifiers -1 for the woods -1 for the leader modifier. 3 and the German half squad regains its morale. Prep fire phase. Cannon at L3 turns its covering arc towards the L2-M3 axis and fires a shot at the German stacking at N1. 3 hexes away, the basic number to hit the target is 8 with modifiers of +1 for the cover arc rotation, +1 for the hex with grains. Five plus 2 is 7, the target is hit, the cannon maintains the rate of fire and the -1 marker is placed on N1. 8 in the shot has no effect. New shot with modifiers +1 per hex with grains, -1 at least 1 acquisition. The modifier relating to the rotation of the cannon's covering arc does not apply to this new shot. 5 and the target is hit again, and the cannon maintains the rate of fire. 10, there is no effect on the target. New shot, now with the modifier of -2 acquisition +1 for the hex with grains. 10, the target is not hit, and the cannon loses its rate of fire. Fire Group K3L3 fires with 6 firepower +1 for the grain hexes. Five +1 is 6, a morale check. Seven +1 is 8 and the German unit gets pinned. Again 7 and the other German squad are also pinned. Greek squad in I6 fires on the German half squad in H5 with 6 firepower doubled to 12 due to being fired at point blank range +1 through the woods. Double 2 +1 is 5, the Greek unit suffers cowering and will analyze this shot in the 8 firepower column, which is 2 morale check. 6 +2 is 8 and the German unit gets pinned. Half squad in G5 fires at the German half squad in H5 with 4 firepower +1. 10 +1 is 11, a miss. Cannon fire in L3 on the German stack in N3, 6 hexes away. The basic number to hit the target is 8, +2 for the grain hexes. 5 +2 is 7, the target is hit and the cannon maintains the rate of fire. 7, pin test check. The German squads pass. Movement phase. Leader from H1 to F4. Stacking from X6 to W5. In this hex it is shot from U5 with 8 firepower, +1 for the woods -1 for non-assault movement. 7, a morale check. The leader has broken morale. Half squad passes. New shot with 2 firepower with 1 more for the woods, +1 for non-assault movement. 5 and it would be a normal morale check, which Jim gets wrong and considers it a pin test check. The half squad gets pinned. Fire from W4, with 4 firepower +1 for the woods -1 for the non-assault movement, -1 for the German leader. 9 -1 is 8, which is a miss. New firing with 2 firepower -1. 8 -1 is 7, a miss. Defensive fire phase. Squad fire in L1 on the units in L3, with 6 firepower +1 for the hex with woods. Nine and it's a miss. Fire grouping G6 and H5 fire on the Australian half squad with 12 firepower +1 through the jungle. Seven +1 is 8, which is 1 morale check. 9 plus 1 is 10, and the half squad breaks. Advancing fire phase. No actions. Route phase. G5 to G4. W5 to X7. Advance phase. Leader from F4 to G4. I6 to H5 entering close combat. Close combat phase. In this close combat there is the possibility of an ambush as it takes place in a woods hex. As modifiers we will have one more for the German half-squad die roll because it is pinned. One for the Australians and 4 plus 1, 5, for the Germans, with the difference in the dice result greater than 3. With this result, the Germans are ambushed by the Australians and will have a modifier of -1 in their close combat dice roll, while the Germans, if they survive the Allied attack, in the case of an ambush, the attack occurs sequentially, with the ambusher attacking first, will suffer from the +1 modifier. Australian attack, which will have a ratio of 2 to 1, needs at least 8 to affect the Germans. 3 minus 1 is 2 and the German half-squad is eliminated with no chance to counterattack. With this close combat we end this fourth round of this match, in which the Germans took an important step to try to win the scenario, eliminating the team from one of the anti-aircraft guns. This turn they will have to advance quick and heavily on the cannon in L3 with the hope of a quick victory in this position to concentrate on the last cannon in the last turn. Let's see how things go. Rally phase German turn 4. Rally attempt by the German half-squad in C6 with the modifiers of +1 for the auto rally -1 for the woods. 12 and the half-squad is eliminated with a terrible start to this round for the Germans. Attempt to recover Greek unit morale in J5 with the -1 modifier through the woods. 6 minus 1, 5, and the half-squad recovers morale. New rally in G4 with modifiers of -1 for the woods +4 for the DM marker. 7 plus 3, 10, is a miss. Auto rally attempt by leader 7-0 in X7 with modifiers -1 for woods, +1 for auto rally, +4 for DM marker. 10 plus 3, 13, is a miss and the DM marker is removed. The German half-squad will attempt to gain possession of the German cannon in S5 requiring a die roll result of less than 6. 5 and half-squad takes possession of the anti-aircraft cannon. This possession comes with some penalties. When the antagonistic faction comes into possession of an enemy weapon, during its use the rate of fire is reduced by 1 and the number of breaks and eliminations are reduced by 2. The advantage in this case is that the unit in possession of the weapon can be destroyed during the prep fire phase or during the defensive fire phase. This way, the Germans can voluntarily destroy the British cannon in the next prep fire phase, fulfilling one of the scenario's objectives. Comes into possession of an enemy weapon, during its use the rate of fire is reduced by 1 and the number of breaks and eliminations are reduced by 2. The British will attempt to recover the German demolition charge at H5 requiring a roll of less than 6. 6 and the charge is not recovered. Prep fire phase. Firing of G6 over H5 with 8 firepower +1. Double 2 plus 1, 5, is 1 morale check, as the German unit suffers cowering and will have its attack rated in the 6 firepower column. 6 + 1, 7, and the Australian unit gets pinned. As a last action in this phase, the Germans opt for the risky action of not destroying the cannon, by determining the victory conditions. If the Germans are the only units in the hex with the cannon, the victory condition is satisfied, and limit themselves to rotate the cannon cover arc towards the T4-T5 axis. Movement phase. German squad from N1 to N2 where it suffers an attack by the anti-aircraft gun using the equivalent infantry firepower, IFE, where it does not use the hit method to hit the target. There will be 8 firepower plus 1 for the hex with grains, minus 1 for the non-assault movement. And the cannon becomes malfunctioning and does not hit the target. The German squad moves in assault movement to M3. The Australian half squad attacks the German squad with 4 firepower without modifiers. And it's a miss. Another chronic mistake by Jim during this game, where he consistently performs a subsequent first fire on the German unit that spent P1.5 movement factor to enter the current hex, therefore, it could only be the target of one attack by the Australian unit. A miss. German squad from N1 to M4 where it suffers an attack by the Greek squad in K3, with 4 firepower minus 1 for the hex with grains, minus 1 for the non-assault movement. Double 6, it's a miss and the Greek squad ends its participation at this stage. Cannon firing on the Germans in M4, using the IFE, with a modifier plus 1 for the hex with grains. Six plus 1 is 7, cannons do not suffer cowering, which is 1 morale check, and the cannon loses its rate of fire. When IFE is used the rate of fire is reduced by 1. 8 plus 1, 9, and the German squad's morale is broken. The Germans are in a hurry, and the squad in U4 becomes exhausted and moves to P1. The stack at W4 also becomes exhausted and moves towards O2. Half squad in S5 heads to T4 to try and recover the demolition charge. 3 and the charge is recovered. In this hex it suffers an attack from the half squad in W5 with 2 firepower minus 1 for the non-assault movement. For minus 1 is 3 which is 1 moral check. 10 plus 1, 11, and half squad's morale is broken. Defensive fire phase. The cannon crew in L3 uses its intrinsic fire and fires 4 firepower without modifiers on the German squad in M3. Eight is a miss. This crew will try to perform a final protective fire against the Germans with 2 firepower without modifiers. 10, the enemy is not hit, and the crew's morale is broken. Advancing fire phase. M3 fire on the units in L3 with 12 firepower. (11), it's a miss. Fire from O2 on the Greeks in K3 with 1 firepower +1 for the hex with grains, +1 for the CX marker -1 for the German leader's modifier. Seven +1, 8, is a miss. P1 fire on K3 with 4 firepower +1 for the hex with grains, +1 for the CX marker. 7 +2, 9, is a miss. Route phase. T4 to S2. M4 to O1. L3 to J3. Advance phase. H3 over L3 entering close combat. Leader from O2 to O1. Squad from O2 to N2. Squad in P1 to O2. G6 to H5 entering close combat. Close combat phase. Starting with hex L3. There is no possibility of an ambush, it is not a hex with a woods or buildings. The Germans attack with 5 firepower against 2 from the Australian half squad, with a ratio of 2 to 1, needing at least 7 to hit the Australians. These will attack with a ratio of 1 to 4, requiring at least 3 to hit the Germans. Nine for the Germans and 11 for the Australians, neither unit is affected, and both go into melee. Hex H5, close combat taking place in hex with woods, possibility of ambush. The modifier will be +1 for the Australian die result. Six for the Germans, 1 +1, 2, for the Australians, a difference greater than 3 between the results, and the German squad is ambushed, and this close combat will occur sequentially, with the Germans being able to counterattack only if survive the Australian attack. Additionally, the Australians will receive a -1 modifier on their attack, while the Germans will receive a +1 modifier. Australian attack with a ratio of 1 to 2 requiring at least 5 to affect the German squad. 5 - 1 is 4 and the German squad suffers a casualty reduction. The Germans counterattack the Australians next with a ratio of 1 to 2, +1 for the ambush. 11, and the Australians are not affected, and these units remain in melee. Rally phase Commonwealth 5th round. Rally attempt by the British crew in J5 with modifiers of -1 for the woods, +4 for the DM marker. 4 + 3, 7, and the crew regains morale. Australian leaders auto-rally in X7 without modifiers, +1 for auto-rally, -1 for woods. 10, morale recovery does not occur. German unit rally attempt at O1 with the modifiers of +4 for the DM marker, -1 for the leader, -1 for the woods. 6 + 2, 8, and the German squad regains morale. Prep fire phase. No actions. Movement phase. The cannon in J5 will attempt to manhandle to J6 with the modifiers of +3 to enter the hex with grains, -4 for the assistance of the Greek half squad and the British crew. 8-1, 7, and the cannon is moved to J6 and stops moving there. Greek squad moves from K3 to K4 where it is attacked by the fire group formed by units in hexes N2, O2, and O1, which will fire with half the intrinsic firepower as they are firing beyond the ideal firing distance, with a total of 8 more firepower, 1 for the grain hex, plus 1 for the exhaustion marker. Five plus 2 is 7, 1 morale check. Nine plus 1 is 10 and the squad breaks below the ELR, but Jim considers it to be above the ELR in this unit, which is green and cannot have its quality reduced, becomes a half squad with broken morale. Leader in G4 to J5. V4 to T4. The Germans prefer not to attack the half squad as they intend to destroy the cannon in the next defensive fire phase. Defensive fire phase. Destruction of the anti-aircraft gun. Advancing fire phase. T4 fires on S5 with 2 firepower without modifiers. 7 is a miss. Rout phase. Greek unit from J3 to J5. Advance phase. Stacking consisting of leader 8-0, the British crew and the Australian half squad from J6 to K6. Close combat phase. Hex L3, German attack with a ratio of 2 to 1 requiring at least 7 to affect the enemy. British attack with a ratio of 1 to 4 requiring at least 3 to affect the Germans. 8, and the German attack has no effect. As the phase belongs to the Commonwealth, they should attack first. However, as there is no ambush, the order of the factors will not affect the product in this case. 8 and the British do not affect the Germans and the two factions remain in melee. Hex H5. Australians attack with a ratio of 2 to 1 needing at least 7 to affect the Germans. These will attack with a ratio of 1 to 2 requiring at least 4 to affect the Australians. And the attacks are unsuccessful and continue in melee. Rally phase German turn 6. Last turn for the Germans, who calculate their real chances of winning this match and see that they won't have the legs to hit the enemy's cannon in Hex J6, granting victory to the Allies. This defeat of the Germans, despite the enormous numerical and qualitative disproportion between the opponents in their favor, had several factors involved, such as some mistakes by Jim, the gods of dice that allowed the annihilation of the German units on the right flank of the attack, and the Jim's proverbial lack of timing in calculating the time needed to complete the scenario effectively. In the replay of this scenario, we will maintain the positioning of Commonwealth forces, changing the way the attacking forces will behave. Thank you for following these episodes. Hello friends, welcome to the second attempt at the S13 Priority Target scenario. On the first attempt, the German units, despite numerical and qualitative superiority, were unable to overcome the Commonwealth forces, ANZACs and British, and their fellow Greeks. This time, Jim will concentrate the German forces in the southeast portion of the map, so that there is an approach to the British anti-aircraft guns in a protected manner, initially by obstructing the Allied line of sight by the woods hexes and, in a second moment, by the hexes with grains. Let's go to battle. Rally phase German turn 1. No actions. Prep fire phase. No actions. Movement phase. Stack with leader 8-1 advance from the east, becomes exhausted and heads to hex Y9. Stack with leader 8-0 also becomes exhausted and moves to hex AA8. Stacking with leader 9-1 advances to hex V1. The half squad advances to U2. Stacking in the northwest portion advances to hex F4. The Germans chose to carry out their movement in a stealthy manner, avoiding, in this first round, exposing their units to fire from Allied forces. Defensive fire phase. No actions. Advancing fire phase. No actions. Rout phase. No actions. Advance phase. F4 to F5. V1 to V2. AA8 to Z7. Y9 to X8. Close combat phase. No actions. Rally phase Commonwealth turn 1. No actions. Prep fire phase. Jim really wants to attack the German stack in V1 with the anti-aircraft gun in S5. There is great doubt as to whether the cannon have a line of sight on the Germans. In the ASL system, so that the line of sight can be measured, it is necessary to declare the shot. If this line of sight does not exist, the data is only released to assess the possibility of making the cannon malfunctioning. Jim chooses not to attack the Germans with the anti-aircraft cannon and will carry out this attack with the squad in the V4 light machine gun. There will be 6 firepower plus 1 for the woods. (10 plus 1, 11, is a loss. The cannon in S5 chooses not to fire and just rotates the covering arc to the T4-T5 axis, ending the prep fire phase. Movement phase. Greek drive from R4 to S5. Q3 to R4. Squad L3 to M3. Half squads from I5 to L4. I6 to J5. British leader 8-0 for M3. Greek leader from L7 to L4. Defensive fire phase. Shooting from V2 over the Australian squad over V4. This attack will have 12 firepower plus 1 for the woods minus 1 for the leader minus 1. 8, which is 1 morale check. 3 and the Australian squad passes. Advancing fire phase. No actions. Rout phase. No actions. Advance phase. Close combat phase. No actions. Rally phase German turn 2. No actions. Prep fire phase. V2 over V4 with 12 firepower plus 1 for the woods minus 1 for the leader minus 1. Eight, 1 morale check. 6 plus 1 is 7 and the Australian squad is pinned, which Jim doesn't consider. Movement phase. Half squad from U2 to T2. This half squad suffers an attack by Greek units in S5 with 8 firepower plus 1 for the woods plus 1 for non-assault movement. Seven, 1 morale check. Half squad passes. New attack with half the firepower, 4, for being a subsequent first fire, plus 1 for the woods minus 1 for the non-assault movement. 5, 1 morale check. 5 and half squad passes. Z7 to W8. Z7 to W7. X8 to X5. Half squad from Z7 to W7, where you will suffer an attack made by the cannon 4 hexes away, using the infantry fire equivalent of 8 firepower, plus 3 for the hexes with grains. 9 plus 3 is 12 and the target is not hit, and the cannon loses its rate of fire. Squad from Z7 to W8. The stack at G6 splits, with the half squad and the demolition charge heading towards H5 while the rest of the stack heads towards I6, in assault movement. In this hex he suffers an attack by half squads of 6 firepower doubled to 12 as it is a point-blank shot, plus 1 through the woods. (10 plus 1, 11, a miss. As the Germans spent 2 movement factors to enter the hex, they will suffer a subsequent first fire, with 6 firepower plus 1 for the woods. 8 plus 1, 9, another miss. Defensive fire phase. Squad on V4 fires on W8, with 6 firepower, without modifiers. 7, normal morale check and the machine gun maintains the rate of fire. 8 and the German squad is pinned. Half squad breaks. Advancing fire phase. Fire group at W7 W8 fires on the Australians at W3 with 2 firepower plus 1 through the woods. Six is a miss. Shooting from T2 on S5 with 1 firepower plus 1 for the hex with the orchard, the cannon crew will receive a defensive bonus of 2 more for the emplacement. 9, another miss. I6 fire on J6, with 8 firepower, these German units have the assault fire capability, doubled to 16 as it is at close range, plus 1 for the woods. 9 plus 1 is 10, normal morale check. The Australian half squad has broken morale. The first Greek half squad gets pinned. The second half squad passes. Rout phase. W8 to X8. J5 to H7. Advance phase. The stack in V2 divides with part going to U3 and part to V3. T2 to S3. The stack at X5 splits, with the leader heading to the hex with the unit with broken morale and moving to X6. The rest of the stack is directed towards W5 and W6. Stacking at I6 moves to I5 entering close combat with the Greek units. H5 to J5. Close combat phase. As this close combat is taking place in a woods hex, there is the possibility of an ambush. As modifiers we will have one more for the Greeks because one of their units is pinned. There is no ambush as the difference between the dice results must be greater than 3. The Germans will attack the Greeks at a ratio of 2 to 1, needing at least 7 to affect the Greeks. The Greeks will only attack the German leader, with a ratio of 4 to 1, needing at least 9 to affect the German leader. The Germans attack first, and with 7, one of the Greek units is eliminated. 9 and the brave Greeks eliminate the German leader. The remaining units enter melee. Rally phase Commonwealth turn 2. Attempted auto rally on M7. Which did not occur. Prep fire phase. V4 shooting over 5W with 12 firepower plus 1 through the woods. Double 4, elite Commonwealth units do not suffer cowering, plus 1 is 9, pin test check with the machine gun losing rate of fire. The German unit passes. Firing of Greek units in S5 on the German stack in U3. 8 firepower plus 1 for the hex with orchard plus 1 for the woods. 7 plus 2 is 9, pin test check. The German leader passes. The first squad is pinned. The second squad passes. Cannon fire on the Germans in V3, with the equivalent infantry fire, with 8 firepower plus 1 for the hex with the orchard. 12, the target is unaffected, and the cannon becomes non-functional. Fire from the other anti-aircraft gun on the half squad in I5 with the IFE, with 8 firepower plus 1 through the woods. It's a miss. Half squads fire on the Germans in I5 with 4 firepower plus 1 through the woods. Movement phase. Attempt to manhandle the cannon in M3 to L2, with modifiers plus 3 for moving to a grain hex, minus 1 for squad assistance. 10, and the cannon cannot move, ending its participation in the movement phase. Leader from P7 to M7. Defensive fire phase. Fire group firing consisting of units in W5, W6, W7, and W8 on V4 with 30 firepower plus 1 through the woods. 8 plus 1, 9, 2 morale check. The Australian squad has its morale broken. Fire Group V3U3 fires on Hex S5 with 12 firepower plus 1. The crew should obtain an additional defensive bonus of plus 2 for the emplacement. Eight Greek units received the plus 1 modifier and will suffer 2 morale checks. The cannon crew will have the plus 3 modifier and will not be affected. The first Greek squad breaks. The second squad is pinned. Firing of S3 over S5 with 2 firepower plus 1 over Greek units. 2 plus 1, 3, 1 morale check. The first squad is not affected. The second squad has its morale broken again and suffers a casualty reduction, becoming a half squad. The crew, with modifiers plus 2 for emplacement, plus 1 for Hex with Orchard, will suffer normal morale check. The crew's morale is broken, with an excellent result from the German half squad. I5 shot on the Allied stack at L4, with 2 firepower, the crew receives the plus 2 modifier for the emplacement. 11, a miss. Advancing fire phase. No actions. Route phase. V4 to R6. T4 to P6. Advance phase. Squad from M3 to N3. Leader M3 to L2. Close combat. Hex K6. The Germans attack with a ratio of 4 to 1, needing at least 9 to affect the Greeks. These will attack one of the German squads, with a ratio of 1 to 4 requiring 3 or less to affect the Germans. Jim initiates the attack by the Germans. As the phase of this turn is Australian, they should make the first roll of the dice. And the Greek half squad will be eliminated. It was the Greeks' turn to counterattack, and with an excellent 2, one of the German squads was eliminated. Rally phase German turn 3. Alright friends, with the start of the rally phase of the third round, let's close this episode. This time the German forces seem to have hit the right tone of their attack, progressing quickly on the Allied positions, and are very close to attacking the first of their objectives, which is the British cannon at S5. The Allied forces are in full retreat and are under pressure on their right and left flanks and will attempt to mount a final defense around their remaining cannons. Rally phase German turn 3. Attempt to auto-rally in X7, with modifiers plus 1 for auto-rally, minus 1 for woods. 11. There is no recovery of Morales. Australian unit rally attempt on M7 with the minus 1 modifier through the woods. 12, and the Australian half squad is eliminated. Jim tried to regain possession of the anti-aircraft cannon but forgot that this cannon had been malfunctioning since the previous phase. Prep fire phase. No actions. Movement phase. K6 to L5 in assault movement. Firing from half squads with 4 firepower doubled to 8 due to point-blank fire -1 due to the Germans being in open ground. Five -1, 4, 2 morale check. 9 + 2, 11, and the German squadron's morale is broken. Half squad from I5 to J4 and then on assault move to K4. In this hex it suffers a subsequent first shot by the half squads in L4, with 4 firepower -1. For -1, 3, 2 morale checks. 6 + 2, 8, the half squad is pinned. Firing the anti-aircraft gun using the IFE with 8 firepower doubled to 16 as it is fired at point-blank fire -1 by FFMO, movement in open ground, and the basic number to hit is 8. 11, pin test check, which does not affect the German half squad, which is already trapped, and the cannon loses its rate of fire. Leader from X6 to X7. Half squad in W7 becomes exhausted and moves to S8. Exhausted W7 half squad moves to S5, returning the DM marker over the Australian squad at R6. Squadron from W8 to S6. V3 to U4. Greek squad fire with 8 firepower -1, FFMO. Ten -1, 9, pin test check. The German squadron passes. First subsequent fire, with 4 firepower -1. 5 -1, 4, 1 morale check. 8 + 1, 9, the German team's morale is broken. Half squad from S3 to S4. The Greek squadron chooses not to carry out the final protective fire, as there is a risk that the Greek unit will have its morale broken and be eliminated due to the failure to carry out the route. Taking advantage of this Greek weakness, the half squad places a demolition charge on the hex with the Greek unit expending all 3 remaining movement factors. Stacking with the leader 9 -1 moves to R2 spending 5 movement factors so far. Cannon in M3 will launch a shot at the German stack that is 5 hexes away. To do this, you must rotate your cover arc to the N2 and 3 axis. As a modifier we will have 2 more for the rotation of 2 cannon axes. With this rotation the rate of fire is reduced to 2, plus 2 for the orchard hexes. The -1 acquisition marker is placed on the German units. 9, the target is not hit, and the cannon loses its rate of fire. Australian squadron firing with light machine gun on German stack with 6 firepower plus 2, hexes with orchard. 11, it's a miss. Subsequent first fire with 2 firepower plus 2. Again, this shot could not occur because the German stack spent only 1 movement factor to enter the current hex, therefore it could suffer only 1 attack by the Australian squadron. 9, another miss and the stack moving into Q3. W6 to S8. W6, exhausted, to S7. W5 to U5. Defensive fire phase. No actions. Advancing in the fire phase. U5 shooting over T4 with 8 firepower without modifiers. 5, 2 morale check. For plus 2, 6, is a miss. Demolition charge firing with 30 firepower without modifiers. 7, for morale check. 8 plus 4 is 12, and the Greek squad breaks above the ELR and suffers a casualty reduction. Fire Group S7 and S6 over the Australian unit at R6 with 20 firepower +1 by CX marker. (11+1, 12) pin test check that has no effect as the Australian squad is already broken. K4 shooting over L4 with 1 firepower. 8 is a miss. Route phase. German squad from L5 to I6. R6 to O8. The Greek half squad is eliminated due to failure to route. U4 to W6. Advance phase. U5 to T2. S4 to R3. Stacking in Q3 splits and takes up hexes P2 and P3. S6 to R5. S7 to R6. S8 to R7. Close combat phase. No actions. Rally phase Commonwealth turn 3. Auto rally attempt in 06 with +4 modifier. The rally does not occur. Crew auto rally in P6. Modifiers are +1 for auto rally, -1 for buildings. 6, and the crew regains morale. Half squad rally attempt in M7, with the -1 modifier through the woods. 6 -1, 5, and the half squad recovers morale. Attempt to recover the morale of the German squad in X7 with modifiers of -1 for the woods, -1 for the German leader. 10-2, 8, and this unit's morale remains broken. Prep fire phase. Firing of 8 firepower on the German half squad at K4. This shot will have a modifier of +1 due to the direction of the shot made by the Greek leader. 6 +1, 7, 1 morale check. 6 +1, 7, is a miss. Fire with the cannon, with the base number to hit the German half squad of 8, -2 for point blank firing. 7-2, 5, the cannon hits the target, the cannon loses the rate of fire. For in the 8 firepower column is 2 morale check. 8, half squad's morale is broken. Fire with the other AA cannon on the stack in P3, using the IFE with the modifier of 2 more for hexes with grains. 6 +2, 8, and the target is hit and the cannon maintains the rate of fire. 7, pin test check. The leader and squad pass. New shot with modifier +1. 9 +1, 10, the target is not hit, and the cannon loses ROF. N3 over P2 with 6 firepower +1. 6 plus 1, 7, normal morale check. 7, the German squad passes. Movement phase. The crew in P6 will attempt to move away from the advancing German forces and move to O6. It will be shot with a fire group formed by units in R7, R6, and R5 with 16 firepower plus 2 for the hexes with grains, plus 1 for the CX marker, minus 1 for the non-assault movement. 2, the German units suffer cowering and will have this shot analyzed in the 12 firepower column. 2 morale check. 9 plus 2, 11, and the crew's morale is broken. New error with new subsequent first fire on a unit that moved using less than 2 movement factors. Leader from M7 to J5 leaving German unit at I6 under marker DM. Leader 80 from L2 to J3, where he will prevent the German half squad from carrying out the route. Defensive fire phase. Fire group fire formed by the units in P2 and P3 on the Australian squad in N3, with 8 firepower plus 1 for the hex with grains. 8 plus 1, 9, pin test check. Seven and the Australian squad should remain unchanged, but Jim considers him as pinned. Advancing fire phase. No actions. Route phase. O6 stops next to the leader at J5. I6 over F5. The German half squad on K4 is eliminated for failure to route. Advance phase. Leader from J3 to J4. Stack in L4 is divided between hexes M4 and M5. Leading on L4 to K4 where he will attempt to recover the German demolition charge. Close combat phase. No actions. Rally phase German turn 4. Another attempt by the German squad to take possession of the British cannon, requiring 5 or less to roll 1 die. Six, and the squad fails to get hold of the cannon. Attempt to auto-rally in W6 with no modifiers, plus 1 auto-rally, minus 1 woods. Four and the squad regains morale. Rally attempt by half squad in X7, minus 1 for leader, minus 1 for woods. 8 minus 2, 6, and the half squad recovers morale. Rally attempt in the British crew in J5 with modifiers of minus 1 for the woods, plus 4 for the DM marker. 7 plus 3, 10, and the unit does not recover morale. Greek leaders attempt to recover the demolition charge. Five, and the leader takes possession of the demolition charge. Prep fire phase. P3 fire on N3 with 4 firepower minus 1 for the leader plus 1 for the hex with grains. 11, it's a miss. Shooting from P2 over the Australian squad, with 4 firepower plus 1. 10 plus 1, 11, a miss. Movement phase. Movement from half squad R7 to P7. Therefore, the DM marker is placed on the Allied units at O8 and P6. W6 for T2. Attempt to take possession of the cannon in T2. The German unit takes possession of the cannon and will be able to destroy it in the next German defensive fire phase. R5 to P5. Shooting from M7 with 2 firepower plus 1 for hex with grains, -1 for non-assault movement, FF and AM. Eight is a miss. R6 to P5. R7 to P7. Stack with leader 8-1 becomes exhausted and heads to R9. Defensive fire phase. Fire group M4 and M5 fire with 4 firepower upon stacking in hex P5, plus 2 for hexes with grains. Eight plus 2, 10, is a miss. Fire from cannon B on P5, using IFE, plus 3 hexes with grains. Jim adjusts the cannon's cover arc to the M4-M5 cover arc, which would add the plus 2 modifier to the shot, which Jim ignores. 6 plus 3, 9, pin test check and the cannon loses rate of fire. And surprisingly all the units in the stack get pinned. Firing with the M3 cannon at P3, 3 hexes away, requiring a base number of 8 to hit the target, plus 2 for hexes with grains, -2 for at least 2 acquisition. (10) The target is not hit, and the cannon loses its rate of fire. N3 fires on P3 with 6 firepower plus 1. 8 plus 1, 9, is a miss. Advancing fire phase. P7 fire on 08, with 12 firepower plus 3 for the stone building. Six plus 3 is 9, normal morale check. 9 and the squad breaks again and becomes half squad. P5 fire on the half squad in M5 with 4 firepower plus 2. Three plus 2, 5, 1 morale check. 10, and the half squad breaks. Route phase. 08 to N7 in low crawl. The half squad in P6 is eliminated by the failed route. M5 to L5 in low crawl. Advance phase. P2 to 03. P3 to 04. P7 to 07. P7 to 08. R9 to Q9. R3 to Q3. S4 to R3. Close combat phase. No actions. Rally phase Commonwealth turn 4. Attempt to rally on J5 with the -1 modifier. For -1, 3, and the crew recovers morale. Attempted auto rally in L5 with Kais 1 for the auto rally, -4 for the DM marker. 7 + 5, 12, morale is not restored. Jim removes the DM marker that could not be removed as this unit is in the line of sight and within the ideal firing range of the German unit in 07. Prep fire phase. Fire from the Australian squad with the light machine gun on the German stack, with 6 firepower doubled to 12 as it is a point-blank fire without modifiers. 5, 2 morale check and the light machine gun loses rate of fire. 9, the leader breaks. The German squad also has its morale broken. Shot from the cannon at the German squad 2 hexes away, the base number of 8 to hit the target, -1 as it is a point-blank shot 2 hexes away. 11 - 1, 10, the target is not hit and the cannon loses its rate of fire. Half squad in M4 over the German squad with 2 firepower +1. 5 + 1 is 6, pin test check. 11, the squad is pinned. Half squad in M7 firing on the German squad with 2 firepower without modifiers. 11, it's a miss. Fire from the other cannon on the German stack in P5, with a base number of 8 to hit the target, which is 3 hexes away, +2 for the hexes with grain. 7 + 2, 9, it is a miss, and the cannon loses the rate of fire. Movement phase. Leader in J5 to G6 where he puts the German squad under the DM marker. Greek leader from K4 to N3. In this hex he is shot by the squad pinned with 4 firepower, pinned at close range, -1 per FFNAM. For -1, 3, 2 morale check. 10 and the Greek leader breaks. Leader from J4 to K6. J5 to K6. Defensive fire phase. O3 shooting over N3 with 4 firepower. 6, pin test check that does not affect the Greek leader who already has broken morale. P4 fire on the squad in N4 with 12 firepower from squads 5, 4, 8 and the light machine gun +1. 6 + 1, 7, 1 morale check. 12 and the Australian squad breaks above the ELR and suffers casualty and quality reduction. Half squad at P5 fires on N4 with 2 firepower +1. 5 + 1, 6, pin test check that has no effect on the half squad that already has broken morale. 07 over M7 with 8 firepower +1 through the woods. 9 + 1, 10, is a miss. 08 fires on M7 with 2 firepower +1. 4 + 1, 5, normal morale check. 7, half squad gets pinned. Q3 about N3 with 2 more firepower. (11), it's a miss. The Germans take advantage of the defensive phase to destroy the British cannon in their possession. Fire Group S4 and T4 fire on the Greek leader with 8 firepower +3 for the grain hexes, +1 for the orchard hex. 11, it's a miss. Advancing fire phase. No actions. Route phase. N7 to K6. N4 to K6. This unit should undergo a normal morale check for interdiction at J5, as they pass through a hex under the line of sight and within the ideal firing range of the German squad at 07. Greek leader from N3 to K6 and should have suffered a ban in K5. 04 to S2. F5 to G3. Advance phase. G6 to G5. Close combat phase. No actions. Rally phase German turn 5. And at this point we close this episode, and we are heading towards the final episode of this battle where the Germans will launch a final attack on the objectives, in a desperate attempt to win this replay. Commonwealth forces will attempt a desperate final defense around the anti-aircraft guns. Rally phase German turn 5. Auto rally attempt in G3. The modifier will be +4. 9, and morale is not recovered. Recovery of the German leader and squad in S2. The modifier for leader is +4. 5 + 4, 9, and the German leader recovers his morale and will help recover the morale of the German squad. The modifiers will be -1 for the leader, -1 for the woods, +4 for the DM marker with the resultant being +2. 10 + 2, 12, morale is not recovered. Attempt to restore the morale of British forces at K6 under the supervision of the British leader. Let's start with the Greek leader with modifiers of -1 for the woods, +4 for the DM marker. Five + 3, 8, and the Greek leader recovers his morale. Half squad with the light machine gun with the +3 modifier. 9, and morale recovery fails. New attempt with the other Australian half squad with a modifier of 3. 5 + 3, 8, and it's a failure. Finally, the last Australian half squad with the -1 modifier. 7 - 1, 6, and the half squad recovers morale. The British leader takes one of the light machine guns from the broken half squad. Prep fire phase. The Germans evaluate their options and choose not to fire at this phase and will move towards the targets. Movement phase. 08 to N7 in assault movement. In this hex it is shot from M7 with 4 firepower -1 by the FFMO. Seven -1, 6, normal morale check. Eight and the half squad gets pinned, as the half squad only spent 1 movement factor to enter the hex. 07 to N6 in assault movement. Fire with 2 firepower -1 from M7. Nine is a miss. Shot with 6 firepower starting at K6 with the -1 modifier. 9 -1, 8, pin test check and the machine gun loses rate of fire. 6 and the German squad passes. Error again, new shot at the German unit that only used 1 movement factor to enter the hex. The fire will be 2 -1. 11, a miss. Half squad from N5 to P5 in assault movement. In this hex, the cannon is fired with the base number to hit 8-2 by firing at close range. Jim decides not to accompany the half squad with at least 1 acquisition, which is nonsense, as at the time of the shot this marker goes to the selected target. Double 3, cannons do not suffer cowering, -2, 4, the target is hit and the cannon maintains the rate of fire. 5, 2 morale check. For +2, 6, is a miss. P5 to N4 in assault movement. In this hex they are attacked by the cannon that will use the rate of fire. The -2 modifiers for the point-blank shot in Jim considers the -1 acquisition as valid. Double 2, the target is hit, and the cannon maintains rate of fire. 9, pin test check. The German squad gets pinned. P5 to N5 in assault movement. In this hex it is attacked by residual fire with 4 firepower. 7, pin test check. The squad passes. Cannon firing using the rate of fire, with modifiers of -2 for point-blank fire. 3, the target is hit. Cannon maintains the rate of fire and the squad will suffer a casualty reduction followed by 2 morale check. Squad becomes half squad. 3 + 2, 5, and the half squad passes the morale test. 3 to N3 in assault movement. Australian half squad fire on the German unit, with 4 firepower. 6, normal morale check. 7, the squad passes. Cannon fire on the German squad with a modifier of -2 for point-blank fire. 8, the target is hit, and the cannon maintains the rate of fire. 7, 1 morale check. 7 + 1, 8, the squad is pinned. Q3 to N2 in assault movement. Cannon firing taking advantage of rate of fire maintenance. The modifier will be -2 for fire at close range. 7, the target is hit, and the cannon loses its rate of fire. 9, pin test check. The half squad gets pinned. Stacking in Q9 loses the CX marker and moves to M8 in assault movement. The half squad in M7 carries out a final protective fire, in which it assumes the risk of having its morale broken and fires with 2 firepower -1 by FFMO, movement across open terrain. 5, normal morale check. The leader passes. 8, and with the support of the leader's modifier -1, the half squad should also have passed, but Jim considers it a bit of morale. S4 to Q2. T4 to Q2. Leader in S2 for Q2. Defensive fire phase. Firing with the M5 cannon on the N5 stack in intensive fire. Intensive fire is a shot that can be fired after the cannons have lost their rate of fire. This shot does not allow target acquisition and has no rate of fire. In addition, the cannons suffer as a penalty for intensive fire. The number of breaks is reduced by 2 points, to 10, and the elimination number becomes the number of previous malfunctioning of the cannon, in this case it is 12. The base number to hit will be 8-2 for point-blank fire. Thinking back, Jim should have used the equivalent infantry fire, since there will be no maintenance of the rate of fire, as the attack would be carried out in the 16 firepower column. 7, the target is hit. 6, 1 morale check. The 2 half squads pass. Advancing fire phase. Fire group in hexes N7 and N6 with 12 firepower +1 for the woods. 4 + 1, 5, 2 morale check. The half squad has its morale broken. Fire from fire group of units in N3 and N4, with 12 firepower over the half squad in M4, without modifiers. 10. It would be a pin test check that Jim does not apply. Firing of 2 firepower plus 2 per cannon emplacement protection. 7 plus 2, 9, a miss. And 2 firing on the cannon on M3 with 1 firepower plus 2 for emplacement. 8 plus 2, 10, a miss. Fire from the stack in Q2 over the cannon in M3, with 8 firepower, plus 2 for the emplacement, plus 1 for the hex with orchard, minus 1 for the German leader. Five plus 2, 7, 1 morale check. And in yet another shocking mistake against the Germans, Jim does not consider the British crew to have broken morale. Life goes on. Route phase. M8 to N8 in low crawl. N7 to K6. Advance phase. N6 and M8 to M7. The 2 half squads advance on M5 and enter into close combat with the British crew. Stacking from Q2 to P2. Close combat phase. Hex M5. There is no possibility of an ambush, only occurs in hexes with woods and buildings. The Germans will attack with an attack factor of 4 versus the British's defense factor of 2, with a ratio of 2 to 1, requiring 7 or less to affect the enemy. The crew will attack only one of the German half squads, with a ratio of 1 to 1, needing at least 5 to affect the Germans. The Germans begin the attack. 5, and the British crew is eliminated. The British will counterattack as there was no ambush. 3, and the German half squad is also eliminated with the partial conquest of one more of its objectives. Rally phase Commonwealth phase 5. Hex K6, attempted rally by units in this hex. Half squad with the light machine gun with modifier -1 through the woods. 6 -1, 5, and the half squad recovers morale. 8 -1, 7, the second half squad continues with broken morale. The third half squad also does not recover morale. The leader passes the medium machine gun he carries to a half squad. Prep fire phase. M3 cannon fire on the squad in N3. The modifier will be -2. Double 2, critical hit that will double the cannon's firepower, from 8 to 16 firepower, and the cannon maintains the rate of fire. 8, 1 morale check. 7 plus 1, 8, and the German squad is pinned. Cannon firing at N2, taking advantage of the rate of fire, with a -2 modifier to hit the target. 9 -2, 7, the target is hit, and the cannon maintains the rate of fire. 9, pin test check. Half squad passes. New shot with modifiers -2 for the point blank shot, -1 for the acquisition marker to hit the target. 10 -3, 7, the target is hit, and the cannon loses its rate of fire. 7, 1 morale check. Half squad passes. Fire from M4 over N4 with 4 firepower without modifiers. 7, pin test check. The squad passes, but Jim considers him pinned. Movement phase. Leader 70 makes a movement to H3 where he causes the German squad to receive the DM marker again and heads to K4 in an assault movement. In this hex it suffers an attack from the half squad in M5 with 2 firepower plus 1 from the hex with grain. 5 plus 1, 6, pin test check. The Australian leader should have been pinned, but Jim considers him to have broken morale. Greek leader for K4 spending 2 movement factors. In this hex it suffers an attack of N2 with 2 firepower or 2 by the hexes with grains. Nine plus 2, 11, is a miss. The Greek leader moves to L4 in assault movement. In this hex it is shot from N7 with 2 firepower without modifiers. 6, pin test check. The leader passes. Firing from M7, with 8 firepower minus 1 for the leader. Double 2 minus 1, 3, casualty reduction followed by 2 morale check. German units do not suffer cowering as their fire was directed by the German leader. The Greek leader is injured, has his quality reduced from 8 to 7 with the plus 1 modifier. While checking the severity of his injury, the leader is eliminated. Roll 5 or 6 on the injury rating dice roll. Crew with the K6 demolition charge to position adjacent to the German stack in M7, in assault movement. German stack fires with 4 firepower plus 1 for the woods minus 1 for the leader. Seven, pin test check. 9, the Australian squad is pinned. K6 to L5 an assault movement where he suffers a shot of 1 residual fire minus 1 for movement in open terrain. 9, nothing happens. Firing from N7 over L5 with 1 firepower minus 1, FFMO. 5 minus 1, 4, 1 morale check. 9 and half squad's morale is broken. Half squad from K6 to L5 an assault movement where you receive an attack with 1 residual fire minus 1, FFMO. 7, a miss. M5 fire over L5, with 2 firepower minus 1. For minus 1, 3, 1 morale check. 8 plus 1, 9, and the half squad also breaks. Defensive fire phase. N2 fire over M3 with 2 firepower minus 2 per emplacement. 9, is a miss. P2 firing on the cannon on M3 with 8 firepower plus 2 for emplacement. 12, it's a miss, and the German machine gun breaks down. Advancing fire phase. L6 fire over M7 with 1 firepower plus 1 through the woods. 5 plus 1, 6, miss. Route phase. L5 to K6. K4 to K5 in low crawl. N8 to 08. Advance phase. M4 to M5 entering close combat. Close combat phase. There is no ambush. Both attacks will happen at a ratio of 1 to 1, requiring at least 5 to affect the enemy unit. Australians 12, Germans are not affected. Germans 9, and Australians are unaffected, and both go into melee. Rally phase. German phase of the 6th round. Auto rally attempt in S2, without modifiers. Morale is not recovered. Commonwealth units attempt to rally at K6, with units without the DM marker with the -1 modifier, and those under the DM marker with the +3 modifier. The first half squad regains morale. The second half squad recovers morale. Two half squads do not recover morale and the DM markers are removed. Attempt to recover the German light machine gun. It's a failure. Prep fire phase. Fire group with units in N2 and N3 on top of the cannon team with 12 firepower +2 per emplacement. (10 + 2, 12) is a miss. N4 firing on the cannon with 4 firepower +2 for the emplacement +1 for the hex with grains. 8 + 3, 11, new miss. Movement phase. Half squad from N7 to N6 using 1 movement factor. In this hex it suffers an attack from the Australian half squad with 2 firepower -2. 8 - 2, 6, pin test check. The half squad gets pinned. German stacking of M7 to M6 in assault movement. Attack with the subsequent first fire from the half squad, with 2 firepower -1 by the FFMO. 10 - 1, 9, is a miss. K6 firing over N6 with 6 firepower -1. (8 - 1, 7, normal morale check. 7 and the leader passes. The squad passes. New fire with 2 firepower -1. (7 - 1, 6, pin test check. And both the leader and the squad pass. Leader 9 - 1 together with a squad 547 advance from P2 to N3 in non-assault movement. In this hex they suffer from the fire from the British cannon with the modifier of -2 for the point-blank fire. (7 - 2, 5, the target is hit, and the cannon maintains the rate of fire. 10, a miss. New fire now added at least 1 acquisition as a modifier. 11 - 3, 8, the target is hit, and the cannon loses its rate of fire. Double 1, which is a kill in action. In the random choice, the German leader is eliminated and the squad breaks. P2 to N2 in assault movement. In this hex you will suffer an attack by the cannon with intensive fire, with the modifier of +2 for intensive fire, without the possibility of acquiring the target or maintaining the rate of fire, in addition to increasing the possibility of the cannon breaking or being eliminated. The modifiers will be +2 for intensive fire, -2 for point-blank shooting. 8, the target is hit. (6) in the 8 firepower column is 1 morale check. 10, and the German squad breaks. Defensive fire phase. Firing with intrinsic fire from the cannon team in M3 over the German squad in N3 with 4 firepower without modifiers. Nine is a miss. Advancing fire phase. Fire group N2, N3, and N4 fire on the cannon in M3, with 12 firepower plus 1 for the hex with grains, plus 2 for the emplacement. Six plus 3, 9, normal morale check. 7 and the crew passes. Route phase. N2 to O2 and low crawl. N3 should move to the closest woods or building hex in terms of movement factors, which would be to O1. However, in this movement this unit will be under the line of sight of the cannon in M3, so this unit will move to O3. K5 to K6. Advance phase. N4 to M5 entering melee along with the units that were there. N2 and N3 to M3 entering close combat. Jim thinks a little more and instead of moving the squad from N4 to M5, he moves this unit to M4. Stacking from M6 to M5. Close combat. Hex M5. No ambush. German attack with 8 attack factors against 2 defense factors of the British crew, with a ratio of 4 to 1, requiring 9 or less to eliminate the Allied crew. The crew will attack the German leader with 2 factors against the German leader's 1 factor, a ratio of 2 to 1, requiring at least 7 to eliminate the German leader. The Germans start and with a result of 7 they will eliminate the British crew. The British roll the result of 7, which injures the German leader, who goes from 8-1 to 7-0. When evaluating the severity of the injury, a result of 5 implies the elimination of this leader. Hex M3. No ambush. Germans attack with a ratio of 3 to 1, needing at least 8 to eliminate the crew. This will attack the German half squad with a ratio of 1 to 1, requiring at least 5 to eliminate the German half squad. The Germans get a result of 7 and eliminate the Allied crew. 5 and the British eliminate the German half squad, occupying the 2 remaining objectives of this match. But things are not over yet, and the Allies still have 1 turn to try to retake or at least occupy some of the hexes with cannons, which would invalidate the German victory. With this we close this episode, and we prepare for the last and decisive phase of this intense battle whose decision is being taken to the last minute of the last phase of the last round. Namaste. Hello friends, welcome to this that is the last phase of the last round of this exciting battle. German forces have already eliminated one of the anti-aircraft guns and keep the other 2 artillery pieces under control. If the Allies are unable to at least position a unit in one of these locations, victory will be German. If the Allies are successful, even with the units involved in close combat, they will be victorious. And let's go to battle. Rally phase Commonwealth turn 6. Allied units attempt to rally at K6, with modifiers -1 for units without the DM marker and +3 for units under the DM marker. 9 and the leader 7-0 does not recover morale, the DM marker is removed. 5-1, 4, the half squad recovers morale. 7-1, 6, and the other half squad recovers morale. Leader 8-0 passes possession of the machine gun to one of the half squads. The German squad at K3 tries to acquire possession of the anti-aircraft gun. 6. Possession is not acquired. Half squad attempts to recover the cannon on M5. 5. The half squad comes into possession of the cannon and will be able to destroy it in the next defensive phase. Prep fire phase. No actions as the Allies are in a hurry. Movement phase. K6 to L5 in assault movement. In this hex he is attacked by the German squad with a light machine gun with 16 firepower -1 for movement in open terrain, FFMO. 7. 2 morale check and the machine gun loses rate of fire. 8. The half squad breaks in with it, one of the Allies' hopes dies. 8 residual fire is deposited on the attacked hex. K6 to L4 in assault movement. Subsequent first fire by the German squad, which could have used sustained fire with the machine gun. There will be 4 firepower without modifiers. 6. Normal morale check. 9. Half squad's morale is broken and yet another Allied hope is fading. The 2 residual fire marker is deposited on the attacked hex. K6 to L3 in assault movement. Squad fire in M4 with 16 firepower without modifiers. 3. The Allied half squad is eliminated. Apparently, the odds are completely stacked against the Allies at this point. The leader joins the last half squad in K6 and moves in assault movement to L2. In this hex it is shot from M3, with 8 firepower, without modifiers. 8. The German squad undergoes cowering, and the result will be analyzed in column 6 firepower, which is pin test check. The leader gets pinned. Half squad passes. Subsequent first fire with 4 firepower without modifiers. 8. A miss. L6 to M6 in assault movement. Firing N6 over M6 with 4 firepower -1, FFMO. 7-1, 6, normal morale check. 7 and the crew should have gone unscathed, however, Jim considers the crew to be pinned. Subsequent first fire with 2 firepower -1. Double 2, cowering, -1, 1, casualty reduction with elimination of the British crew. Defensive fire phase. Jim does not perform a subsequent final fire from M4 on L2, as the subsequent final fire can only occur when the enemy is in an adjacent hex. Advancing fire phase. Firing from L2 over M3 with 1 firepower without modifiers. 9 is a miss. Route phase. L5 to K6. L5 to K5 in low crawl. O2 to O1. O3 to O1. Advance phase. As the only option, the health squad advances on M3, entering close combat on the ground without the possibility of an ambush. Close combat. Last phase of the last round and last hope for the Allied forces in this scenario. The half squad has 2 attack factors against 5 German factors, with a ratio of 1 to 4, requiring 3 or less to affect the Germans. These will attack with 5 against 2 of the Allies, with a ratio of 2 to 1, requiring 7 or less to eliminate the Allied unit. Allied attack, which with a fantastic result of 2 eliminates the German squad. Now, as there was no ambush, the German counterattack can occur and, with a result of 7 or less, will eliminate the Allies and win the game. It is the equivalent of the last penalty kick in the Football World Cup finals that could determine the victory of the cup. 8. And the Germans do not affect the Allies, who remain in the hex with the cannon and completely unexpectedly win this scenario at the last moment. During the events that occurred in 1941, despite the destruction of the bridge, German paratroopers landed with precision and destroyed several anti-aircraft guns positioned to protect the strategic bridge. With the destruction of the bridge, some of the ANZAC units were trapped north of the Corinth Canal, but most Allied units managed to escape, as German forces could only advance after installing pontoons over the canal. Just as at Dunkirk, Hitler was denied his prize. With this exciting finale, we finish this episode of this fantastic priority target scenario, and we will move to the next scenario of Starter Kit 4, called Stovepipe Funeral, with the Japanese using their thin cans, the famous Type 97 BCHA tanks. See you soon! Namaste!